Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let's move into some of the shows for today. Let me check my volume. Hope everyone is doing okay. I figure while I'm up and moving and active and awake and aware, let's do the news. And sound is good, perfect. Yeah, I hope everyone had a decent morning. I'm not going to keep this one long because I don't expect too many people to be here early this morning. But I was somewhat hopeful that when Donald Trump decided to stop funding the white helmets, that this was somewhat of a nod of pulling people out of Syria. If we, for the moment, take him at his word when he says, I want to take these troops out of Syria and I am taking these troops out of Syria, then I was hopeful that not paying the white helmets was a way to do it. The reason is because I am very sketchy on whether or not this chemical strike took place at all. I have not seen any evidence that has nailed down the fact that the chemical strike has taken place at all. And the last I saw, Mattis was saying they were still looking for evidence. This seems to have been created through social media to some degree and hyped up in a certain amount of hysteria with past actions substituting for evidence and information. If Donald Trump was earnest about taking those troops out, it is possible that not giving the white helmets cash, undermining that group with the potential, or him understanding that group has the potential to essentially do something like that again, which will compel the U.S. behavior. His decision or his behavior is somewhat compelled if something like that takes place. Donald Trump gets pulled into the actions whether he wants to or not. I strongly suspect that Donald Trump wants his focus to be on Iran, not necessarily Syria, which is not necessarily a game winner. But perhaps I was wrong on this. There's a story out that the United States has been telling and warning Syria to not go into certain regions and clear out terrorists in certain part of his own country. This is Orwellian. This is Orwellian. Who needs laws? Who needs laws? Are we a country of laws or not? Who needs laws? At the end of the day, we're in a country illegally. We have no legal basis to be in that country. This idea of fighting terrorists and everything else, that is a fig leaf. The honest reality of it is the president of the United States does not have the authority to do these wars. Congress just has turned a blind eye from the president going from one country to the next. We're in like 6 or 7 countries. With Donald Trump expanding the number of people that he's been murdering with these drones exponentially over Obama, who was a prolific murderer himself. Look, we're still in Syria, and the idea that we're telling Syrians that they shouldn't go into certain areas of their own country is absurd. But that is indeed what is taking place. That is indeed what's taking place. Any notion that the United States is leaving Syria kind of gets washed away at the moment where the United States is literally protecting terrorists in that region of the Gulf, in that country. It's amazing. I've shown you other stories where Israelis have come out saying that the terrorists are actually the good guys and the United States should be assisting the terrorists. Well, they got their wish. We are. We are. Let's take a look at this. This is Mint Press. The United States State Department tells Syria what it can and can't do on its own soil. I would refer you to the Tulsi Gabbard conversation when she's talking to Mathis. And she's making this point to him that Donald Trump's strikes in this country were illegal. And Mattis tries to use the term complicated. The term is illegal. We're there illegally. There is no legitimate legal basis for us to be in Syria. And yet we are there nonetheless. And the media doesn't ask. They're not curious to any measure why we're there. That's amazing. You would think that such a uniformity of thought was only in something like state media or in one of these totalitarian regimes. The United States State Department has warned Syria against launching any offensive against terrorist positions in southern Syria. The statement claims that American military will respond if Syrian forces launch an operation aimed at restoring the legitimate government's control over the rebel-held areas, including the territory in southwestern Syria between Daraa and Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Washington is issuing orders to a nation whose leadership never invited America in the first place. The very idea that another country could tell you internationally recognized Syrian government that it cannot take steps to establish control over own parts of its national territory is odd and preposterous by any measure. Imagine the ridiculousness of what's taking place here. Donald Trump can make whatever proclamation Donald Trump wants about the United States. But Donald Trump making a proclamation that London can't do something would be nonsense. Why is it any more or any less nonsensical in this situation? The United States, one particular nation, is trying to instigate itself into another nation and tell that other nation about the affairs of that particular nation. That is preposterous on its face. That is preposterous on its face. But what the United States is saying is, we are defending terrorists, and if you attack those terrorists, we will respond in force to defend those terrorists. That's exactly what is taking place here. This is abysmal. Are you telling me that people they're leveraging the bravery of these kids who are impressionable, who ends up in the military, believing that what they're doing is for the best interest of their country, and they're involved in stuff like this, illegally occupying another country and threatening that country with force when that country makes decisions to clear out terrorists from that country? It's sad and overwhelmingly pathetic. Let's keep going. State Department spokesman Heather Nauert said Washington would respond with firm and appropriate measures. I have no idea what that means. But does the United States have any legal grounds for responding with any measures at all? What is it actually doing in Syria? And wait a minute. President Trump recently solemnly promised to leave. Indeed, there is no justification for the United States military presence, especially after the Islamic State ceased to be a factor in influencing the events there. Once that force had been reduced to insignificance, it would have been totally routed a long time ago if America had not intervened with the remnants of the military groups to survive. What the person is saying here is, for all the wringing of the hands and the crying about the people who've been dying, the babies, the women and children, all this stuff, we've been instigating that. We've been putting in fighters and munitions and weapons and resources. If it wasn't for us doing that, this war would have been over a long time ago. ISIS is at this point insignificant in that country and is well within the power of Russia, Iran, and Syria to deal with their affairs and to finish the job of getting rid of the terrorists from that nation. The United States, Donald Trump, said he wasn't there for regime change. Then why are you there? Why are you there? ISIS is no longer a factor. Why are you there? And why are you in this disgraceful position of saying that you're going to attack the government of that country if they go after the terrorists? What bedfellows. And what does it say of us? What does it say of us in this situation? Crawling around with terrorists. The statement calls on Moscow to use its influence with the Syrian government to prevent the liberation of the captured areas in accordance with last year's de-escalation agreement between Russia, the United States, and Jordan. I love the way this person writes. Who is this? Who is this? Who is this? It's just honest. Peter Corzin. Peter, fucking love the way you write. It's honest. It just calls it what it is. In other media, they have this weird warped way of not calling things what they are. I love this. He says exactly what it is. Moscow has also called on Washington not to destabilize Syria with missiles and airstrikes and to do something about the humanitarian catastrophe in southwest Syria. But is anyone listening? Last month, Russian President Putin said in a statement that any cooperation with the United States in Syria had been suspended after April's attack, which the Russian government viewed as an act of aggression against a sovereign state. It's not just a viewed, it was literally an act of aggression against a sovereign state. It was not Moscow who started the whole thing, rendering all previous arrangements null and void. Assistant Secretary of State Wes Mitchell told the House Foreign Affairs Committee on 18th of April Washington was ready for an armed clash with Russia and Syria. The statement did not go unnoticed in Moscow. Although it is a guarantor of the de-escalation zone in the southwest Syria, what has the United States done to prevent the rebels from attacking Syrian forces and staging all kinds of provocations, essentially coming up with chemical attacks in order to create a provocation, trying to get the United States further or the Western powers further in Syria in the same way the Western powers were able to get further and destroy Libya? He's right. I love the way he writes. It's breathtakingly honest. Let's see. What about the 12,000 strong southern front that has amassed in southern Syria preparing for an all-out assault on Syrian forces? Is that not a violation of the agreement in regards to the de-escalation zone? They plan to capture Daraa and turn it into the capital of a would-be quasi-state supported by the United States and Israel. A false flag chemical attack cannot be ruled out. The militants have some experience staging such provocations. The logistics of this force involve crossing the Jordanian-Syrian border under the guise of providing humanitarian assistance. Has any de-escalation agreement been given a green light to such activities? The situation could have been discussed during the recent Astana meeting, but the United States was conspicuously absent while encouraging military preparations in the province of Deir ez-Zor. The United States warning coincides with the news that the United States is going to recognize the Golan Heights as Israel's territory. That's amazing. Just stolen land. Just outright stealing land. And any foreign presence there, such as Iranian, for instance, will be viewed as a threat to Israeli sovereignty. That's amazing! The country that destroys and bombs other countries, that's literally destroying and taking other land from these people. But they're the ones that are under attack. It's amazing. It's always Israel as a victim. As a threat to Israeli sovereignty. And of course, America will be ready to help its old friend and ally. The heights of the Syrian land. They were captured during the 1967 war and illegally annexed by Israel in 1981. That move has not been recognized internationally, but the United States is ready to defy the rest of the world. Again, it's not the first time. The embassy in Israel was moved to Jerusalem. The Iran deal was unilaterally torn up. The list of examples illustrating United States scorn for international opinion can go on. Despite its stated intentions to leave, the United States warning shows that it will stay in Syria for a long time and its future plans have little to do with the Islamic State. Which is the point. If you're telling me that you're there because you're there to fight terrorism and Islamic State, but that has been rendered moot, and you're still there, then you must be there for another reason. Which is the point. You are there for another reason. Which is what we've been saying all along. You've been assisting ISIS in order to take down Bashar al-Assad. You've been helping terrorists to try to take down the country. And right now, this is a naked example where ISIS is not really a factor. But the United States is literally given a warning to Syrian forces to not attack terrorists in its own region. The United States being the one that is there illegally and the one that has not been invited. This is an amazing fucking phenomena. It is utterly preposterous in its scope and its meaning, and yet it's put through nonetheless with this subtle and large threat of military force. If they attack the terrorists that are in their country, that is amazing. The United States is literally protecting terrorists and is in another country telling that country to not touch the terrorists. Don't you dare lay a hand on those terrorists. It's amazing. That's utterly amazing. I will leave it here. I'm not going to keep this one long, but the article is at the bottom. Kelly laying down, Jamal no sleep. Yeah, not tonight. I was up. I ended up doing videos late. One video led to the next, and I figured I might as well get the ones out while I'm up and awake. So, yeah, doing it live. Aren't you going to the left forum? Yes, my plan is to go to the left forum. But I'm probably not going to get there until Saturday. So. Alright guys, I'm going to end this here. I don't want to keep this one too long. You all have a good night. And I may or may not see you in a few minutes. There's another 1 or 2 articles I want to do. Have a good one, guys. Oh, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.